right. Good day, everybody, and welcome to this webinar where we will present the plant maintenance solution that we built on the Celonis platform. I hope everybody's here. I see we have some attendees here. So let's start. If people join later, then always we have the recording, of course. First of all, let's go over the planning for today. First of all, we will do an introduction of ourselves and Marcadus, such that you know whom I'm talking to you. Then we will introduce you a little bit in the field of plant maintenance, what we see in the field. Then we will discuss the Celonis solution that we have built, together with a live demo that will be done by my colleague. Then afterwards, once we understand what the solution is, we can discuss some next steps where we will guide you in, all right, how can we bring this hopefully live at your company? And last but not least, we have the Q&A where we have the stage up for you to ask you all the questions. So first of all, the speakers of this webinar, my name is Jan-Peter. I'm the product owner of this app. Together with my colleagues, I built this. And today, the lead developer of the app, Mathijs, will provide you the demo and walk you through what the app is doing and how it can be used. We are Marcadus, and we are an innovative Celonis partner since 2016. And within that, we have three pillars. First of all, we have the services, so we can help you with all kinds of questions. And within that field, we are acknowledged being a core partner of Celonis. Secondly, we built also our own solutions in the maintenance fields that result in the Plant Maintenance Navigator and the Field Service Navigator. And last but not least, we have experience in connecting the info sources to Celonis. But we are here today to discuss everything about our maintenance solutions, and especially here, the Plant Maintenance Navigator. So let's talk about plant maintenance. Before we start with what we see in the market, we're very keen to hear what you think. So we have a question for you. What's currently the biggest challenge in your maintenance organization? Let me bring up a poll to do so, and I will give you a couple of seconds to fill in the answer that fits your situation the best. I'm not sure if everybody can find the buttons. I see no submissions at the moment. Yes, I guess it works. I see some submittings here. 3 of them, cool. Let's wait for 10 more seconds before we will we'll see what the outcomes are of your answers. All right, well, let's see what you all responded to this question. So what we see is having the limited visibility into maintenance costs. That's happening. Too many unplanned and corrective interventions. So for me, that's a signal not being fully control of what you can do preventive. A low schedule adherence, inefficient use of resource workforce, difficult collaboration between technical and operational teams. Well, luckily that's not happening here. And the lack of end-to-end visibility of maintenance processes. Well, I think for all these challenges, we have an answer today, and I hope at the end of the session, you have the same feeling. Before going into depth, let's discuss what other research has shown what's happening currently in the plant maintenance field. So this is a research done by McKinsey, and we asked 100 plant maintenance managers for this. And the question was, talking about productivity in plant maintenance, how would you elevate your maintenance costs? And we see in this question that 62% of the interviewees said the costs are rising higher than the inflation levels. So we have a challenge here. Secondly, was the question, do you encounter any difficulties recruiting new maintenance technicians? And in here, we see 70%, so 3/4 of all the questions said, yes, we have some difficulties. Some have major issues, some have minor issues, but there is some challenges here to get the right people to do the job. Lastly, if we talk about controlling your process, which we think preventive maintenance is a good signal of. The industry says the best practice to do so would be around 70 to 85%. And even the top quartile of companies says we don't meet that levels, so we are below that. So also being in control, doing your preventive jobs, that's still an issue, meaning that you do a lot of implant jobs that have less flexibility and harder pressure on your organization to get things done. So with this domain knowledge that we have in this field, we selected on how do we bring this into a functional app. So first of all, we selected the focus areas. We see here that we have maintenance operations, supply chain, procurement, the spare parts organization, and IT. Together, they have some challenges, being aging equipment and reliability, unplanned downtime, resource management, data management, and compliance and safety. And that we transformed into the objectives, what we think these are your main goals that you want to improve within your process, being asset reliability, increase operational effectiveness, labor productivity, reduce the maintenance cost, and being compliant. And this objective, this is where our whole solution is built on, and that we will discuss further on the webinar, but also during the demonstration. These challenges cannot be solved only by looking to your plant maintenance process. So we're talking here about process intelligence and how they can do. And I think with the current tools that we have in the market, we're able to link these processes to each other. And that's very helpful because the key challenges that you would have in end-to-end visibility would be, for instance, that how is your maintenance operations affecting your production uptime? How is the delays in material procurement and logistics affect your maintenance schedule? Should you replan something? How much material and inventory is tied in maintenance? Do you have too much stock maybe that is costing a lot of working capital? And how can you optimize the frequency of inspections, that you are finding the right spots, that you not doing too many inspections without any outcome, but also not do too less, that you have more unplanned work. And that brings us together to relate the process around the plant maintenance domain, being production planning, supply chain logistics, inventory management, procurement, and asset management. And as said, we need the right tooling to stitch all these processes to each other. And luckily, that's what we'll discuss today. Bringing us to the Marcadus Plant Maintenance Navigator. This is the app that we built on the Celonis platform that is focusing on these business objectives and these challenges, making it visible to you, and also bringing in some solutions into it in place directly to not only show where you can improve, but also really help you by improving it. So where do we focus on? I would say the scope of our solution is really about the work order execution and the relevant processes. So we start here on the left-hand side. We see that a notification or a maintenance planning schedule is triggering a work order creation. And with the work order, we see also that work order operations and tasks are created. So that are the actual actions that you need to do. Before you can execute a task, we need to have a technician aligned to it. We need to have a certain permit to be allowed to do it safely. And also we need spare parts to replace stuff. If we're talking about spare parts, then it gets always a little bit complex because we need other processes to do so. We need the logistics, we need the inventory teams, we need procurement parts to get all the parts on time as soon as possible, but at least before your scheduling date. Once everything is on green, we can start with executing the work order. So we schedule it, we execute it, and at the end, it's completed. Once completed, we can back to operation, or back to with our producing our production orders, and then you would say it's technically complete. But then we have some side steps because you see that then still there is some administrative steps to do. So most of the times we see that technicians are creating a debrief, which helps you to handle your accounts payable in case if you're using subcontractors in your process, or accounts receivable if you are executing work by assets that are not owned by you or that they're owned by another company. So this is what we found important. It's not only about executing the work, but also, can I close the loop of doing also the administrative steps in there? Then talking about how to make this happen. So we built our solution on the Celonis Process Intelligence technology. And what does this mean? This is, I would say, the top of market solution to bring all your process insights together, but only not stopping by the insights, also help you to get your actions and follow-ups in place. So first of all, to do so, we need to connect to your data source, which is a wide scope. I would say every data source that has a data connection on it, being an API, being a database connection, would work. And then on top, we define our business objects. Could be a work order task, and the events. So everything that happens with those objects. And then on top, we add the knowledge layer. And a knowledge layer is a set of standardized process definitions. And this is everything that we bring to you. So we do need you to create these objects or define these objects. We created this for you. And the only thing that we do is mapping your source data towards it. And once we have that layer in place, and it is the graph, so all these projects, objects, events, and logic can see each other, we can start by building consumers of these insights that will help you being in control of your process. So you see here that you have a process cockpit where you see the X-ray of your process. We have the process adherence manager where you can say, I have a BPM flow, doing actually what I have planned to do. We have the operational apps that can help you acting your business users to do some stuff. You could think about backlogs or work queues, however you call it. You have action flows and triggers where you can actually trigger RPA flows. So if you want to not do your people do the change, but actually want to do the source system itself, we can automate that. But also we can deploy AI tools such as co-pilots, agents, and integrate with the current agents and AI solution that you have already in your company. So how do we start? We build all our projects and also our solution in 3 phases. First of all, we need to deploy the data model. This is a really technical part, and as said, we will define, or we will bring our templates to you. And the thing that we will do is mapping your source information to these objects. And we have these templates already available. So if you have the most common source systems, this should be a matter of configuring instead of developing. What's the benefits of this? Not sure if you are already a Celonis customer. If you are, then you're lucky, and we can already intertwine with your other processes, such as procurement, such as inventory management, but it's not a pre-requirement. Our app can work standalone, but we can also integrate with the current objects and events that you have already defined in Celonis Process Intelligence Graph. And this is key because this really ensures that we have those end-to-end insights that we need. The second step is we install the starter kit here in the middle. This will help us to frame all the insights that we can see in your process and the opportunities that we have. How did that go? Our starter kit is built up on a couple of steps, and it is the X-ray, we call it, for your main process, really understanding what is going on. We first start with setup and validation, which we do together with your domain expertise, saying, well, we see this KPIs, is this correct? And we have all tools to do that in a structured manner. Then we can start to measure the performance. So we have a couple of key metrics that we discuss in the app to see where the biggest problems lie. This helps us to focus because for every metric and every performance indicator, we have opportunities. Mathijs will allow you to show how that works in real life, but with these opportunities can help us to really create action plans and start working on it. Then, last step, once we know the priorities, we will create a benefit effort matrix, and where we will see like what is the opportunity, what is the solution that we should start with to ensure that we have the highest value for the lowest lead time. And then we have a solution roadmap, we call it. So we're not starting with one improvement project. We start with, I would say, the major ones and the ones that have quick wins. But later on the project, later in the phase, you will see the more and more use case we can pick up with our solution. So this is not something that you will do in one day, not in 1 week, but it is a continuous improvement that you can do on your process. So in the beginning, we talked about those business objectives. And as said, that is also where our app is built on. So we have the business objectives here on the top. And you see that for all the business objectives, we have some key metrics that we are measuring them. Again, we're using the data that we have in Celonis to do these calculations. And this is all that you get pre-configured in the app. And then for every business objective, once if we select them as saying this is the most important one, you see that we have improvement opportunities. And these are prescriptive opportunities saying you what is going on and what will be the best counteraction to act on. Again, later in the demo, we will show you how this actually works. So once we did our X-ray of the process and we really understand what's going on and what should be our priority, we can go to, in my opinion, the fun step of the process, acting on it, building solutions to counteract them. And that's here what we do in the last step, the realize step, before we really create, not only see what the value is, but really realize the value that is in your process. So what we can do, as discussed, we can install operational apps that help you guiding what you should do, or your employees, what they should do. You have the action flows, which are automation flows to write back data to your source system or to send out notifications to your employees. And you can put AI solutions such as copilots, such as classification metrics on top of it to really help you understanding what's going on and do your best next thing. So a couple of examples of solutions. For instance, for an operational app, we have the work order processing app, where you can see for every work order what should be the next best thing that you or your employees should do. But also, if you see that your spare parts are not on time for a certain work order, you get a notification there saying this work order might be delayed and you need to update it. This is definitely something that you will see back in the demo. Secondly, you have the action flows as discussed. And here you see that in this example, we can report back to people. And even if it is a simple change or it's not affecting you, doesn't need any human in the loop, we can automatically write back to your SAP instance. Last but not least, the Copilot. For a customer of us, we created a Copilot where employees could ask them what would be my best planned lead time for work orders. So the Copilot then checks everything that happened in the past and provides, well, based on what I see in the past, based on what the current task list is, this should be your recommended lead time for this work order. Well, I think that is a lot of theory. I believe that always seeing is believing. So I would like to give the stage to my colleague Mathijs that will go through the live demo.
Yes, thank you, Jan-Peter. So now we get into the fun stuff, the actual demo of the solution. So what we have here is multiple different views. So our solution is really a solution suite. It does not end with that X-ray of your process. It's also going into the operational apps, really realizing the value. But in this demo today, we have 3 levels that we're going to show solutions for. The first one is for Anna. Anna is a maintenance VP, and her goal is simply to know, what's my process doing? How is my performance against the targets that we set or towards the initiatives that we've decided to go towards? For her, we have the control tower, really high over dashboard. Then we have Steven, who's a process analyst. His goal is looking towards the process and finding execution gaps within the process to see how can we solve these issues. For him, we have the process cockpit, as Jan-Peter just said, really the tool that creates an X-ray of your process and shows you where to start improving it. Then we have Leah. Leah is a maintenance planner, and she is part of the operation itself. And for her, her goal is to plan the work and make sure that it can actually be executed on time. And of course, have all the dependencies in place such that the work order can be executed on the scheduled date. For her, we have the Open Work Order Processing app, which is an operational app that is it's a tool in her toolbox to make sure that indeed all these dependencies are in place such that the work can be executed. So now we can go into the solution itself. If we look at the solution that we have in front of us, we start with the control tower. So this is the view that we have for Anna. Anna, really, maintenance VP, she just wants to know how her process is doing, high level. So we give her 3 main views here: on-time completion, preventive maintenance, and maintenance cost. these were the initiatives of this company that they said, we want to improve our maintenance on these topics. If you look at the first one, on-time completion, you see, of course, the KPI, and then you see a graph. This graph shows the KPI performance over time, which shows her, okay, are we increasing, are we improving our performance, or are we doing worse over time? But it doesn't end there, because based on our expertise and the data that is behind this, we have identified specific opportunities that are standard in the process that are negatively impacting the KPIs. So if we look at this opportunity view in the left down corner, we see at the top has scheduled date change. So a number of work orders have scheduled date changes. We see there 1,153 work orders. We also see work orders that have unavailable stock materials for those materials that we are expected to be in stock, and we have late material deliveries. So Anna, she just wants a high overview, but she also wants to create the conversation and start up the conversation with the relevant people. And in this case, this would be Steven, the process analyst that I introduced earlier. Anna just wants to start up the conversation with Steven on how to improve this on-time completion rate of 42%. As we can agree, 42% of on-time completion is just way too low. So they decided it is an initiative, and Anna can, with this view, start up the conversation with Steven being, hey, can we improve the schedule date changes? Can we improve those unavailable stock materials such that our on-time completion rate can be improved to the level that we want it to be? So then we hand over to Steven. And for Steven, we have the Swiss Army knife. And the Swiss Army knife is, in this case, the process cockpit. So before we go into the relevant deep dives that we have, we first go into the Process Explorer. And the Process Explorer shows the process such as Celonis in the backend measures. So if we start here with the process at the top, we have the maintenance notification for part of the work orders. You can see how often, how many objects you have, how often the events happen. You see that that maintenance notification can go into a work order, so a work order is created. You can see that the work order is scheduled. You can see that the work order has multiple work order tasks. And if you follow this orange flow of the work order task, you see that technicians are added, permits are requested and approved. And then just the number is, of course, also already interesting. But for Steven, he, of course, also wants to look at throughput times. So this tool of Celonis and the Plant Maintenance Navigator shows also throughput times between these steps. And you see request permit, approved permits, the work orders need materials. And here you have a very interesting end-to-end visibility of the material reservation. For a lot of the times, it goes straight down to the post-goods issue, where the goods are issued to the relevant work order task. But you also see this split going to the left into purchase requisitions and purchase orders. So here we have the end-to-end visibility going all the way into procurement for those materials that were not in stock, such that they had to be purchased. Well, if they had to be purchased, at some point we know when it is received. And again, it goes back into the same flow where the goods are issued to the relevant work order task. If you then continue on to the end of the flow, you see that the tasks are started and completed. We also see that the work orders are started and completed. Well, this is a very straightforward view, but for Steven, it's also interesting where these inefficiencies in the process are. Of course, he can also already go into the relevant throughput times to see which steps take longest, but it gets very interesting when we increase the variance. So if you go all the way, we see here a lot of paths that this process can take. But from our experience, we already know where a lot of the inefficiencies are, and we already know between which events these inefficiencies can be measured. So what we did is, instead of Steven having to analyze all these inefficiencies himself, we already provide him with the analysis out of the box. So if we go into the full process cockpit, this process cockpit has 5 main KPIs. At the top here, we have on-time completion, preventive maintenance, schedule adherence, touches work orders, and cost per work order. And each of these KPIs builds up towards a certain business objective that Jan-Peter already introduced earlier. So for example, on-time completion builds up towards increasing operational effectiveness. So this is the overview of the KPIs that he has with the different overtime performance, but we have way more analysis available to Steege. So at the top of this deep dive view into on-time completion, you have a few basic metrics. You also have your performance over time. And then in step 2, with the context, you have a bit of analysis over dimensions, so we can see his performance over different plans. He can also drill down, filter, etc., over the different dimensions that we have available here. We also have a histogram showing, okay, so we have on-time completion, but how are we performing? Are those work orders completed too early? And how early are they then completed? But specifically also, if we complete a work order too late, how many days is it late? So is it just 1 day late, or is it maybe 9 days late, or is it maybe 2 months late? So the histogram allows him to really analyze this distribution on how late work orders actually are. And also here you have a pie graph, as each work order has a certain classification. Is it completed on time? Is it completed too late? Is it overdue? Or is it still upcoming? And with the combination with filtering, this really gives him a lot of freedom to really analyze the process over the whole company and whole enterprise. And at the bottom of each of these deep dive views, we have a per work order view. So in this case, we're focusing on on-time completion. So we give him per work order the classification, whether that work order is on time, whether it's too late, whether it's upcoming, etc. We give him the relevant timestamps. And of course, we also give him the ability to deep dive into each of these work orders. So which work order tasks are in this work order? What materials does this work order need? Is it coming from a maintenance notification? Do we need permits for this work order, etc.? So there's a lot of data already available at his fingertips. But as I explained in the Process Explorer just now, we, based on our experience, also have a lot of out-of-the-box opportunities that we measure that we say these have negative impact on the on-time completion rate. So at the top here, we see that the current on-time completion rate is just 42%. But what is happening that it is just 42%? That we can see here in the opportunity list. So if you look at this opportunity list, you see multiple opportunities, you see how often they happen, and you also see the impact on the KPI. So let's start with the top 2, and then unavailable stock materials. So in this case, we expected materials to be in stock for critical equipment, for example, but when they were needed, they were not in stock. That happened for 839 work orders within this data set. And if you look at the on-time completion rate, it has a negative impact of 20 percentage points. So instead of 42%, for this subset of work orders, this KPI was just 22%. So that combination of how often it happened, on how many work orders this was the case, and the impact on the KPI gives Steven the ability to really say, okay, but this opportunity does have a lot of negative impact on my process. So we should investigate that and also improve that over time to make sure that that on-time completion rate goes up. So it doesn't end there. So for each of these opportunities, we give Steven the ability to deep dive into these opportunities. So we're talking about those materials that are not in stock in this case. So again, we give him here the ability to see whether this is improving or whether we're doing worse over time on this specific opportunity. And we also give him a lot of graphs, which he can use to really drill down where to start up the conversation on what is really happening. So in this case, for example, we here see material groups. So these materials, which materials were actually not in stock the most? In this case, we have actuators and pumps as material groups at the top. So in that case, he can already do a lot of analysis and take that with him to see, okay, but what are my root causes and what would be the solution that is behind this? Well, in this case, maybe the material safety stock is too low, or there are other issues. When he does the analysis and the case is that the material safety stock is too low, there is a material safety stock optimization action flow that can be installed, which just measures how often this is the case. So how often the materials were not in stock, and then maybe increases the material safety stock automatically, or it notifies the material planners. But you can go even way further. And if you say, okay, but this is really our main issue, you can also install any of the inventory management Celonis apps that come out of the box. So for example, the starter kit, the planning parameter app, to solve this issue. So this really measures how much impact it has, and also gives Steven the tools to start up the conversation with the business, and also start up the solutioning. That's the next step. So that was the unavailable stock material. But at the top here, we have scheduled date changes. So a work order is scheduled on a specific date, and it is rescheduled to a later date. Well, at some point in time, if you reschedule it often enough, it will go past the date it should have been executed at all. So it goes past its due date. So that's also the case where it has a negative impact on your KPI. So here we give him, again, a lot of tools to do the analysis on what is happening within this opportunity. So the opportunity is reducing those scheduled date changes, making sure the work order is executed on the first day it was actually scheduled. So here, again, over time, he can do the analysis, whether he's improving within this opportunity, but he can also go drill down by plant, or maybe planner group, or other dimensions such as functional location, to see where does this opportunity happen the most. So which people should I be talking to make sure to really see what's the story behind this. But you can also see that within the data. So if you look at the bottom here, we see that for a specific work order, you see that there were 2 changes in the schedule date, and the total days were added was 9 days. So this was compared to the initial schedule date, 9 days were added to the later schedule date. We also have a histogram here at the top where he can really look at the distribution. But if he then goes into identify root causes, we also show him correlation within the data. So what could be the cause of this schedule date change? And in this case, we see at the top here, materials delivered too late with schedule date change. So if your material is delivered too late, then it can be the most probable cause for the schedule date change. So your work order was rescheduled because your materials were delivered too late. So we had to do it at another later date to make sure that the work was executed at a later date. So what would be the solution? The solution in this case is making sure that every dependency is in place already at the first date it was scheduled. For that, we go into the last app that we have in the demo of today. But again, there's way more operational apps that you can use to improve your process. But in this case, we say, okay, but we want to make sure that all dependencies are in place for that work order on the first time it was actually scheduled. Here we come into the job of Leah. Leah is the planner. So she's part of the operation, and she just wants to make sure that all the dependencies are in place for the work order to be executed on the scheduled date. So here, 1 row per work order, and these columns with the colors. So is that work order already scheduled? Yes. Is the permit dependency in place? So is a permit necessary? If so, is it requested and is it approved? And for the materials, we have even more data where we say, okay, but we need these and these materials. Are they all promised to be in time? Are they all in stock, etc.? If not, Leah needs to take action to make sure that that work order can be executed on the scheduled date. So for her, you see here 1 open task. These are the notifications that Jan-Peter mentioned. She gets a notification for this work order that materials are arriving late. So she needs to do action to make sure that either these materials will arrive on time, so these materials need to be expedited, or she needs to do something else to make sure that at the moment of execution, these materials are there, or that the work order is rescheduled to make sure that the technician is not on site without the materials, and we're even having these valuable technician hours wasted. So she needs to take action on these open tasks, and she can also look at all the relevant necessary data to take action, such as sending emails, opening it in the source system, or any other automation that you can put behind these tasks. So this is really an operational app for a planner to make sure that everything is in place. But again, depending on the opportunity that is in the process cockpit, there are a lot of different operational apps you can put towards that opportunity to solve the inefficiency. So if we then go back towards the overview, we have a solution consisting of multiple different views. At the top, again, we have one control tower, which is really just a high overview for Anna, the maintenance VP. Then we have that process cockpit, which is that Swiss Army knife for Steven, the process analyst. And then we have an operational app, in this case, the open work order processing app, which would be a solution to one of the opportunities that are highlighted in the process cockpit and can be used by Leah, the maintenance planner, to improve the actual process. So I now want to hand over back to Jan-Peter so that he can do a recap of what we've heard today.
Great. Thank you so much for the demonstration. So as said, let's recap what we have learned today in this webinar. Yes, I think there we go. Our three key takeaways of today. First of all, we've built a solution on Celonis platform, being a real-time platform that helps you for flexibility, scalability of your process insights. It works on every source system. We built in our industry expertise about plant maintenance, being the objectives that we want to solve, and all the metrics and opportunities that we see in those areas. And last but not least, we built a set of apps and also a project approach that help you prioritize what's the most important, really going into deploying your technical stack onto insights, onto actions, and the shortest possible time to value. And this is not only something that we spoke here on paper in a webinar, this is also proven in practice. So a global manufacturer is using our app live at the moment, and with them we identify more than $20 million identified value that we see our opportunities in our app can work towards them. And it's not only monitor talks. This was a discussion that we had with the Vice President, Head of Asset Management at a manufacturing company customer in the EMEA. And he's already a Celonis user. And when we downloaded our app, when we went live last year, he said we spent 5 months on a custom POV, so building everything up from scratch, to end up just covering 2 use cases. Having that known, we should have gone with your app from the start. For him, virtually the app was not available yet, but this really shows you how previously you have to tackle this kind of use cases, really build it from scratch, interviewing everybody, what do you would like to see? While right now we give you an app that is fully customizable, but we already provide a template to really start doing something already from the beginning. This was the content that we'd like to discuss. I hope that you really enjoyed it, because then we can go to some next steps. So today we're here with the introduction. Hopefully you understand how process intelligence and Marcadus PM drives enterprise value. If you need more information, we have the Q&A later, and of course you can always reach out. And next steps would be an optional technical intake. So if you're doubting if our solution will work on your source system, we're happy to align with your technicians and our technicians to see whether there is a fit. And later on, we can do a discovery workshop. And discovery workshop is really sitting together with your domain knowledge and your managers, the people that control your process, to decide what are your prioritized objectives, what will be the success criteria of an implementation project, and what will be the proposed proven requirements before we can start the project. Well, if all lights are on green, we can go to the next phases, having the executive alignment, initiate the implementation project. So as said, we will have a Q&A, and to give you some time to answer all your questions that you would like to have us answered, we prepared some frequently asked questions that we saw currently in our discussions that we have with clients. So for that, I want to have the expert here on board. Here we have Mathijs again. Mathijs, I have a question. I have a very homegrown system, and does it work with Celonis and our plant maintenance solution?
Yes, it is very likely, because all these systems, they in the core do the same. They do work order execution. So we've seen this work in practice where we just model this data back to the work orders, because it's all just the same principle. They all have the same dependencies. So if we model them back to the objects, the business objects that we have, so the work order task, and the materials, etc. We're very close to having the app full up and running. We've seen this in the practice, so yes, this is definitely possible. But if you do have doubts whether that's the case for you, of course, we can do a technical intake session to see whether that's also the case for you. But again, we see that in practice, it just works.
Wonderful. So I'm right now very interested, and I want to use this app. What are the next steps?
Yeah, so it's based on a license structure, just like the Celonis processes and the Celonis premium apps. So you, out of the box, of course, you get the app usage. But on top of that, you get future updates. You get all the future developments that we do on the app, and we make sure that all the newest Celonis features are part of the app. On top of that, we do, of course, technical support, but we also do success support. And success support means that we do value coaching. We start up the discussions together with you to really make sure that you're optimally using the app and also optimally improving the process based on the app and the solutions that we provide. If, in a case, you have additional use cases that are not out of the in the core app, we're happy to co-innovate to make sure that these use cases are part of your app.
Nice, nice. All right, next question. Do I need to be a Celonis expert before I can use this app, so implementing or using the insights of it?
Yes, so no, you don't need to be. The app is very self-explanatory. It does require implementation. Of course, we provide implementation services, but if you have your own Celonis team or your center of excellence who is, you can do their own thing in Celonis. Of course, you can also do it yourself. We provide a lot of documentation, and it's a very self-explanatory app to both implement, configure, and also get up and running to your end business users. On top of that, if you have a Celonis service provider already, of course, we can support them such that they can do the installation, configuration, etc. Again, with that documentation and also with our support as we are just on call to make sure that everything goes smoothly.
Great. All right. I listened to the story, but instead of maintaining a couple of plants, I perform maintenance in the field. Will this app work?
Well, yes, but to make sure that we have those few specific field service use cases also supported, we created a sister app to the Plant Maintenance Navigator, being the Field Service Navigator, which really focuses on the really specific field service use cases, such that they also are the relevant opportunities shown, and you can also start improving those opportunities. If you want to take a look at that, it's part of our product page on our website. And of course, we can also do a session together with you to go through that app.
Great. I'm again very interested. How long does it take to install the app?
Well, if you are already an existing Celonis user, we can have it up and running within 2 weeks, just having your insights. If you're not a Celonis user, it will take around a month to make sure that the data connection, etc., is set up. And then again, you will have your data and your insights within 1 month.
Lovely. Cool. Well, we hope that this provides you already with the insights. I see also some questions coming in, so let's go also in those ones. The first question is, can you give insights in the return on investment?
Well, for each opportunity, it really depends on the use case. So you've, of course, the process cockpit starts measuring the different opportunities, and there is a value case behind these opportunities. When you then go into improving these opportunities, you already start having return on investment, which is really value realization. So it really just depends on your use case what the ROI is. We can do a discovery session together with you to see what your pain points are and do a suggestion on what the ROI will be.
Clear. Next question. Nice to hear about the identified value, but what is realized? So what's the difference between identified and realized value?
Sort of the same answer as the case here before. Again, it depends on your pain points and the identified value to really start using these operational apps and all the other solutions that are behind it to start improving the relevant KPIs such that it can be realized. Specific values on what is realized at this point we cannot share, but we're we can really have that conversation together with you to see what the case for you would be and make that business case together with you.
Yeah, and I think that really the distinction is identified is that our app is showing you have 1,000 work orders that had to be rescheduled in the past. Realized means we do the right action such that you don't have to lately reschedule them where you have idle technicians, but we really be preventive in there. So we have tools within Celonis that really count the number of advices or tasks that we create for your employees. And every task is some value. So we really do something about in the process to prevent, I would say, losing money here. And that's what we call realized value. Let's go to the next questions. What are the business logic that needs to be in place or mapped out before implementing the application?
So I think that is very limited. In the core, this maintenance process is the same across companies. Of course, you have your own business logic, but there's a lot of configurability. And with the self-explanatory, the level of self-explaining that the app does, it really guides you through the setup and validation for each step where we say, okay, maybe you have 2 or 3 options within the business logic, and you just choose what is relevant for you. If there are possible discussions there, we just see what is relevant for your company. But if you look at previous experiences of setting up the app, the overall process is very similar company to company. Just looking at a very high level of the maintenance process itself, where we're just looking at, okay, but what specific timestamps, how are you using, for example, your source system, such that we really pick the correct timestamps, which in that case is less of business logic and more of a system connection. If there are really cases of business logic, it's very limited that need to be mapped out for it to be up and running.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I think so. I think you explained or you showed even how the process flow works. And what we call configurability is, for instance, in the on-time completion, you can define which of those events should be your due date of your work or what's the actual completion date. So it can be that the moment that the work order is called technically complete. It might be that it is the moment that the debrief has been approved. Yeah. Simply said, we don't care. We map everything, and you have the option to select which event we should be using to benchmark that. So that's what we call flexibility. And again, all these setups, the main configurability you get from us. So that's all predefined in the app. Once we identify with you, your domain experts, that there is an event or there's a timestamp that's applicable to you, we can easily add it. You see it then back in that flow. And we can select it in our source system, that should be the event you care about. Then our final question that we have in here, which EAM software systems do you have experience integrated with?
Yeah, so we see that a lot of our customers are simply using SAP as their enterprise asset management. So our core and also Celonis is using SAP a lot to model their processes on. However, the process is very similar across all of these systems. We have main experience in SAP. We have an out-of-the-box connector for that, which really means that you're very quick up and running within days. If you look at other systems that are in place, we did a lot of technical intakes there, where we are confident that it's simply a plug and play on a lot of these systems. And we've also done it on multiple homegrown systems, where we've also seen that the mapping is very quick and up and running. So in this case, multiple across the board where the app is up and running.
Yeah, I think in our domain knowledge, what we've seen that at least the Oracle EBS, InfoLN, but also IBM Maximo contains the, I would say, the main object data that we need to have valuable insights. So it might be that there's, especially if you have homegrown, that some connections will work differently in your system, but again, the main insights of the app work on those platforms. But again, also in here, if you are interested, we always can do a technical intake where we can see what kind of data your source system produces, what we require, and if there's a mapping in that. Let me scroll up. I think we have one left. Are there any dashboards used to manage unplanned or breakdown orders?
So in this case, unplanned or breakdown orders is simply a work order type. And we see that the main apps that we have out of the box, part of our solution suite, if you are filtering on the specific work order types, that all the same opportunities and analysis you still need to do on these specific work orders, but you just have a subset which you're specifically referring to. So if you really look at sort of that X-ray that you want to do, the process cockpit is a very good one. But if there are specific issues that you want to pick up, for example, you can get them back into the open work order processing app, where you can actively take action into the future of the upcoming work orders or the breakdown work orders that just came up this morning and should be executed as quick as possible. So there's a lot of possibilities to manage. If you really want to say manage, the open work order processing app could be a very good solution. If you want to really analyze it, you can analyze them simply in a process cockpit and really look at those specific work order types.
Yeah, so you would say if you, well, maybe your highest priority will be the breakdown orders causing the most effect in your production process. Yeah. That's fine. You set the filter on the app, and yeah, you focus on those ones too. So that's exactly part of the process. Let's start on focusing the most impacting ones. And if for your situation, the breakdowns is that, well, we can set that filter in the app, and we start with optimizing that before going into the other ones.
Yeah, definitely.
Keeps on going and going. Next question, is an OCPM setup required, or do you also offer a case-centric variation?
Well, in this case, Celonis is moving towards OCPM as a standard, and that's also how we have created our app. So even though we have a lot of expertise, and we also have done a lot of case-centric in the past, our app is really built on that OCPM platform, simply because it creates that system agnostic layer. So it doesn't depend which source system it is. Everything can be plugged into our object-centric layer, and then the app works on every source system. So in this case, if you really have an issue, of course, you can contact us and we can start up the conversation on what is possible. But this specific app out of the box is an OCPM app.
And I think also that it really helps to get an end-to-end visibility within other processes.
Yeah.
So that's why we decided to only focus on object-centric to get all the insights we need. Well, that was the end of the list. Thank you all for all the questions. Really eager to see that you see some follow-up, that you see some interest sparkles in our presentation, and happy to discuss this always with you if there's a need to. That brings us, I think, to the end of this webinar. The only thing we can say is we're looking forward to joining forces. That's why we believe in. It's not only you using our app, but also making you successful with the insights that our app can bring. And if you are in the already around, we will be at Celosphere also this year. It's the biggest Celonis conference, being in Munich on the 3rd to 5th of November this year. You can look for us. It's the Marcadus booth 14, if you have the layout. And we're happy also to discuss the conversation, being online, being on site, or being at Celosphere. So please reach out if you have any additional questions, if you want to see more, or if you want to have a technical intake or a discovery workshop. Thanks again. That was the end, and we hope to meet. Thank you.